this is Sharon Weinstein, and I work in the healthcare, hospitality, and human resources spaces. I'd like to chat about embracing differences. Sometimes those differences are more than skin deep. They are an accent, a dialect, a language, and of course, a culture. Were you ever the only one with braids, with braces, in a native costume, with dark skin, or with a scar, burns, or a disability? Do you attempt to fit in and minimize the differences? And if so, why, when they are what makes you so special? Let me give you an example. Traveling to Israel with my Russian colleagues when they decided to retaliate by speaking only Russian. My Russian is limited to 4 days of class and enough language to get by to build a hospital unit or engage in a simple conversation over a menu. If you're just starting out in dialogue about race and the majority of your team is not engaged, perhaps you should consider safe spaces for conversation through affinity groups, groups that bring together employees with similar backgrounds or interests. This can help to ensure that shared identities have space to process and that unintentional harm is not caused to historically marginalized populations. When it comes to building culture, many workplaces focus on helping employees fit in. The focus shouldn't be on fitting people into an existing environment, but rather creating an expansive environment that can adapt in response to new, diverse members and the experiences that they bring to the table. To create this type of culture, start with a community conversation. By intentionally setting aside time and space for people to share their experience and listen to others, you can help people become more empathetic, expand their perspectives, and feel a stronger sense of belonging and connection. Having these types of conversations goes a step beyond inclusion. At a former employer, we did this through monthly potlucks with each participant bringing a dish from the motherland. To illustrate the difference between an inclusive culture and an expansive culture, consider dress codes at a party. An inclusive culture is one where if you show up to a party and you're not wearing the dress code, they'll still let you in a culture that's open to expanding. When you show up to that same party and you're not in the dress code, not only do they let you in, but they ask you to pick the music. With a culture open to expansion, people can bring their true, authentic selves to work because that culture evolves to fit around them as individuals. We've all had challenging conversations. Sometimes I'll ask, have you ever been or do you live with a teenager? If you do, you clearly understand and can relate to the concept of what comes in is not what comes out, and perception and reception don't always align. In my professional career, I've had that opportunity because I've done a lot of work globally. So not only did I have challenges communicating as the middle child, the middle of 5, the one who was both a middle and older and younger, but no one understood me. It was probably part of my, I'm going to run away and it's the only way I can get noticed. Was that the right attitude? But as I was progressing in my career, which started from a clinical platform in nursing and expanded to the opportunity to teach my chosen topic, which was IV drug administration, in 14 countries and in most states and provinces, I expanded into other work in other spaces all over the globe. As I started to think about it, I realized working with multiple countries, especially in Eastern Europe, there was no currency, there was no healthcare system, there was no healthcare infrastructure. So to deal with people who had been considered middle-level personnel, which meant that they didn't have an MD after their name or a PhD after their name, which are revered titles, to those who only had a baccalaureate or a master's degree, or the equivalent perhaps of a nurse midwife, was a challenge. They didn't seem to count as much, and they often had a challenge just in being heard. As I started to expand my work, especially in the Far East, I realized that an entire cultural awareness is not just the spoken word and what those conversations are that we're having, but from our behaviors and from our body, language, and tone. There is so much that we can learn from those we encounter on an everyday basis. I encourage people when they visit us to not copy our mistakes. Instead, listen. Listen with intention, listen with respect. If there's an idea or a concept that you can then adapt to perhaps practice in your own country, go for it. But don't copy what we do poorly and then emulate it. And about those conversations, When our youngest daughter was reminded not to talk to strangers, her response at age 5 was, "You know me, Mom. No one is a stranger for long." I encourage you to embrace the differences and see the world and conversations through an entirely new lens. Enjoy that process.